Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. on Thursday, June the 13th, and we will call to order this special meeting of the Millwood City Council. This is an administrative appeal hearing before the City Council, and so at this time, would you take roll to establish a quorum?
Yes. Councilmember Stravens.
Present.
Councilmember Sander.
Present.
Councilmember Van Hees.
Here.
Councilmember Culler.
Here.
Councilmember Vesey. Present. Mayor Freeman.
Present. So let the record reflect that we have a quorum and all 5 council members are in attendance. So we would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So at this time, we formally open the hearing? So it is 6:02 p.m. and I will formally open the hearing tonight in the matter of, I'm going to borrow that for a minute, an administrative appeal against MHP 2024-01. So, Mr. Wurst, would you take it away, please?
Okay, just some opening matters. I think, as I mentioned the other night, reminder, this is it's a closed record, but it's an appellate hearing, so you're sitting in a quasi-judicial setting. Those of you that have been on the Planning Commission realize the quasi-judicial hearing nature of things. We don't do that as often on the City Council side. I almost was going to ask Councilmember Stravens to recite from the top of his memory the public hearing script that we have, but it's too many hats to wear tonight. So I just wanted to remind you again, there are, in a quasi-judicial setting, there are certain considerations under the appearance fairness doctrine under Washington law that have been developed. So we go through a process at the outset of any of these quasi-judicial hearings to ensure that the doctrine's been fulfilled. So what I do need to ask is, in terms of any members of the council that are sitting as the decision-making body this evening, the appellate body, do any of you have an interest in the project or the matter that comes before you tonight? Interest being financial or property interest? No, okay. Do you stand to lose or gain any financial benefit as a result of the outcome of the hearing tonight?
No.
Okay, now record reflect 5 no's. Any of you contacted on an ex parte basis, which means verbal or written communications outside of this setting or the hearing or the record that's before you tonight? I will note that the city has received public comments from various members of the appellant party. Those would not be treated as ex parte communications. We've received those. We've all received those. And those have been provided to you. But to the extent that you've had any ex parte communications, quasi-judicial hearing requires that you put those on the record and that they just be put on the record and allow you to state whether that affects your ability to sit in a fair and unbiased manner or not. So, Councilmember Stravens?
No.
Okay.
In addition to what was provided last week and tonight, I've also received an email from Ken Bain.
Okay. Okay.
I also had Gene Pearson, but that was received, and Sean brought his in, so I think that's covered.
Okay. Thank you. The additional disclosure that you made, does that affect your ability to sit in a fair and unbiased manner in your opinion? Okay. Councilmember Van Hees?
I did also receive emails, but I submitted those emails, and it does not have any bearing on my decision.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Culler?
The one I submitted, it would not affect my ability to be impartial.
Okay, and Councilmember Beasley?
None, and I have actually not checked my email. I lost my password and have tried to, so if I've received anything, I have not visibly seen anything that's not in these packets.
That's probably the safest way to be affected by this, so I appreciate that. No, thank you. And other other than what we've received, it, doesn't affect your ability to sit fair and impartial. And then, I guess the only other question I have is, sitting here in the quasi judicial setting with our disclosures, those in attendance have to be afforded the opportunity to see if any of the five of you, if there's a belief that any individual cannot sit in a fair and unbiased manner in your setting tonight. So ask those in the audience, if there's any conflicts of interest or perceived or actual on the record, if you want to disclose those, please go ahead and do so. Going once? Any perceived or actual conflicts of interest by any of the five council members? Okay, so record will reflect no perceived or actual conflicts raised by those in attendance. And I think that is it for appearance, fairness, doctrine, and the record. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I will ask, is there any member of the council that believes they would be unable to issue a ruling tonight, i.e. abstain or in some way render this body to have a tie? Anyone feeling that way? Then that is good, because then I do not have to be a part of the hearing body tonight. So I want to get that out of the way. So I am not a part of the hearing body.
Okay,
That's
that's
it.
it for me. I think we have one appeal. And so what we've done is we've kind of tried to streamline the process. The applicant will have an opportunity to present their argument or their positions. The appellant, which is actually consists of multiple individuals, as I've informed an individual or representative of the appellant, they've got a certain time. They don't have to put one designated individual up, but they can put up multiple individuals to present their argument or their position. It's just that they will also have 10 minutes to address the council, and then there's a 5-minute rebuttal. I think the city planner may have an opportunity to kind of present the matter to you, but that's kind of the process for this evening. So I guess with that, I can go ahead and hand it over to the city planner. Okay.
Mayor, Council, I had the opportunity to review the appeal that was filed. In addition to the question that was posed by one of the council members, I provided back my written responses to you several weeks ago. And so I'm not going to rehash the responses, but based on the record, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions from the hearing body to the planner regarding either the generated record, the closed record that was generated, the decision, the appeal, or any further communications or questions that were made after or part of the analysis? Mr. Stravens.
So I have a question. So I thought this is an excellent report, probably one of the best I've seen in 17, 18 years. In terms of the density, it comes up to 16.6. Do we have precedent to round up? So some jurisdictions round down. Do we have something in our code to round up?
There was nothing in the code that I knew of that addressed it at all. So I used standard practice that I've used in my 20-plus year career.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sander.
I just have a clarification question for me. Is there a definition of cottage style that is, that would be, I guess, enforceable is the question I'm asking in the conditions?
There is not, but we referenced the typical design examples that were submitted as part of the application. So as applications would come in for the units, I would review in accordance with those typical design examples.
Thank you.
So I would like to ask a question back to the rounding up. You say that it's been your standard practice, but is that industry practice? Because the language is clear as a maximum, and maximum means maximum, so there shouldn't be any rounding opportunities.
You can't have 3/4 of a unit. So my practice, and I believe the practice of the industry has been to go to 17 in that case. I can't speak to every planner, but that's what I have done. It doesn't come up very often, luckily, but that's how I've handled it.
Mr. Stravens.
Mr. Wurst, I'd like your opinion on that. Do you have an opinion? It's not codified. I know other jurisdictions, especially in California, since you can't have 0.6, then they say, okay, we're going to round to lower. Do we have something? I didn't see anything in our code that refers to it.
No, we don't have anything in our code on it. It's without definition in the code, it's up to reasonable discretion. It's not uncommon to round up, it's not uncommon to round down. I can't say with certainty, but without looking back at all of the planning decisions of the planner in the past. But I do think at least on one or two occasions, there has been a rounding up by the city. I can't say that with certainty without going back and reviewing all decisions, but that would not be an uncommon practice, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wurst, is there any opportunity in this hearing to revisit the actual rounding decision? Because it seems to me there's a very solid case if 16 was the number, but maximum does mean maximum. And I will let you know in healthcare, you are not allowed to surpass the maximum. So, I mean.
I think your options are to approve or disapprove at this
Okay.
point. I think that's what I could say at that.
So I would caution the body that you are moving into a deliberative mode and not in, right now we're into questions of fact or clarification.
I was just
No, I understand.
defining the parameter of what we're allowed to do.
No, okay. Any other questions, Mr. Culler?
So, man, is it common procedure to place such conditions, similar conditions on a application like this during the process of the permit approval process?
Yes, every subdivision or typical multifamily of this, well, sorry, let me refrain from that. Every subdivision, or this is an atypical project, but I reviewed it as I would a subdivision and conditioned it as such. One thing I do want to point out to supplement Councilmember Beasley's question, in my analysis, I took a look at the Millwood Estates 55-plus senior community. It also was rounded up to be the 2 units per 10,000 square feet. It was a rounded up.
That is correct. I do remember that.
And that's on page 26 of 30.
Any other questions from the body of fact or with reference to the report that was issued?
I have one other question. The testimony provided by TAPA says that their developer goals are to create affordable options of home ownership. I understood this to be a rental property, that they're trying to put together a rental development. Do I misunderstand? And this is actually houses being packaged for home ownership, lower affordable home ownership?
So based on the record, from my recollection, I'd have to look at the specific wording, but I believe it was leased pads with the units on them that they could be purchased or rented, purchased or leased. I don't know if it was specified, if it was home ownership, I'd be happy to look it up though.
So your understanding is similar to my understanding that we're talking, I was just curious, cause
Yeah,
this was
I don't wanna
introduced
speak out of
today, and
turn.
I was like,
So
I didn't
I
even know
will
we were talking
search-
about home ownership.
Yeah, I will search my record to see if it actually is specified.
Okay, please.
Any other questions for the body? So with no further questions, so at this time, we'll begin the hearing process. So first, we have we are affording the applicant an opportunity to present to the hearing body. If the applicant would like to present to the hearing body and step forward. If you would, please approach the podium, state your name for the record. I said, if you would please step to the podium and state your name for the record.
Yeah, Tom Anderson. Okay.
So you have 10 minutes
10
to.
minutes, all right.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council for hearing me out tonight. I appreciate that. So I want to talk to you guys and the folks in the neighborhood in the Millwood community. I'm a small developer. I've done a few projects in the Spokane Valley. I'm not a big machine. I'm not, in this business to go gangbusters and find, an acre here and an acre there and plow a bunch of houses onto them. That's not who I am. That's not my style. What I want to do is I want to build a nice community, something that I'm proud of. When I drive by it, I can look at it and say, I built that, I put that together. It was my dream, and take a lot of pride in that action of what I'm doing. So I don't know if you know a little bit of what I've done, but I developed the Tappa Business Park out there on Sullivan and Trent. So just a little bit east of Sullivan and Trent, I built out that project there. And that was the first time that I've ever done anything from a development standpoint. Again, I'm just a little guy, and that was the first time I did that. That was a pretty big operation that I did, and it came off really well. I drive by that today, and the people that are in there that own those, and there's some lease tenants in there too, they all love it, and I take a lot of pride in the fact that I put that together. I'm doing a couple other things, with property and all that kind of stuff that would have something similar to what we're talking about here. The key to it is that, again, I'm small, I can build something unique, I can put a lot of character, quality into the process of what I'm doing with it. And again, when I'm all done with it, thank the Lord for it, and then also thank the opportunity that came my way to actually have the ability to do this. So I grew up in the meat business. That's all I've ever known, really, all of my life. That's what I did for 47 years, and then decided to take on developing things like this. So just to kind of cover what we're doing and wanting to do in Millwood, it was interesting today and yesterday. I drove around the valley a little bit, and you see pockets of houses that are being put into a lot of the lots, and they're literally on top of each other. And for me, I didn't like that look. If I was a neighbor around that, I would hate that. I would complain about it. But the sad thing with it is that is what's coming to us from our government to build more density and housing and all that. I don't want to do that. Don't have any intentions to do that. If I had an opportunity to do it, I still wouldn't do it because I don't like that look, and I don't want people to be on top of each other. What I want to do is I want to build something that creates that opportunity for some people that want to be in a home today to be able to afford to do that. Because prices, as you all know, have gone off the roof. Most people can't afford it. I was thinking as I was driving in here today, when I was 25 years old, the first house I bought, I paid $48,000 for it. That was a long time ago, but that was $48,000. People today that are 25, they can't afford to buy homes in the Spokane Valley or other areas based on what pricing is done. So what we want to do is we want to create a community on those 2 acres over there that gives us an affordable price point for people that want to get out of apartments and own a house. They want to get out of RVs. A lot of people are living in RVs. They want a house and move them into something that's more comfortable and something that's an investment. So when you look at real estate, it's the best investment that any of us can do in our lives. Real estate's made a lot of wealthy people in our country. Renting, you throw money into a pot, you never see it back. In investing in real estate, you have the opportunity to get that money back and then some if you hang on to it long enough. So to answer your question a little bit earlier, when it comes down to ownership, essentially with the park as it is, we would be leasing the land to the homeowners that would come in and buy that home. Now, we're gonna populate the community with these cottage-type homes, so we are going to pick 3 or 4 different styles, and that's what we're gonna put in there, and then we're gonna market that from the standpoint of the people can buy the home. If they could buy the real estate, I'd sell them the real estate too, but based on the zoning, based on the rules for developing this community, we can't subdivide that ground into small enough lots to make it work for every one of these houses. So I have to whether I want to or not, I have to maintain ownership of that land. And I have to lease it back to the people that would be buying these houses. So first of all, they do have an investment that they will have the ability to make a payment on, get a principal portion of their payment that goes to the principal, some interest that becomes a write-off on their income taxes potentially. So there's upside to them on that. And someday, that house that they buy now will most likely be considerably higher. Real estate's just gonna continue to go higher as it has all of my life. So if they have the ability to pay off that home, grow some equity within that home as well, it's a win-win for them. Now, ideally, if I could sell the land to them in that little lot, and maybe someday in the future, maybe that land would be subdividable within a community so that those people could actually then buy that. Instead of it being a leasehold type of a setup, you know, they could actually have that full ownership of it. And that would be my ultimate goal. I mean, from my end, I don't have to do a lot of things to have fun, make a little bit of money, and create a opportunity for people to own their own home. When I look at that property over there, it's a great community, it's in a great location. I appreciate everybody's intensity for wanting to keep the area the way that it is. But the sad fact is that things are changing in our country. More people are coming in our country. Homes need to be created for them. Opportunities to own needs to be created for them too. And again, sadly, there's just a whole lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever that cannot afford to buy in today's market. And even though these are going to be more affordable, they're still not going to be inexpensive. And if you add a lot rent to it too, it's still going to be a little more expensive. But the key to it is it's probably going to cost them less in a payment than what they would have if they are renting a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. So again, that's a big upside for it. It's going to be, I'll come back to it. I take a lot of pride in everything that I do. Anything that I develop, or anything that I've developed to date, I take a lot of pride in what I did when I developed those and how they look today, and many of them years later, how they actually look and how great that project was for a lot of people. So when we look at this one here again, it's part of making this, you know, appealing in its look. As people drive by it, we want to have really nice landscape that accentuates the community and build that pride that we want those folks to have in that community too. So from the standpoint of landscaping, it'll have really nice landscaping. Part of what we'll do is we'll have full control of landscape maintenance, the road maintenance, anything that goes on in and around there, our company will be taking care of that. So TAPA, which is my company, again, will own those components, and it's our total responsibility to do that. There would be CC&Rs that would be developed that would require the homeowners to do a certain aspect of care for the property around them and what they're doing, but us as the developer, us as the owner of the ground, we will enforce that care for the property. And if people aren't caring for it, then we're stepping in to add the extra care. One of the things that I noted in there too is everything that we're going to put on here is going to be new. So it's not going to be any used homes coming in and being planted on that lot. It's all going to be new. It's going to be 3 or 4 different styles that we would put in there, and it'll look really, really nice. I can guarantee you that most people will love what we do. Not everybody's going to, but most people will love the finished product of what we're going to do here. It looks like I still have a minute, so do I open it up for questions?
It's just your opportunity to present an
Yeah.
argument. The council may have questions for you
Okay.
Later on. Yeah.
Later? Okay, all right. So again, I guess I'll close it out. We want to create something special for Millwood. I grew up in the area. I graduated from West Valley High School a long time ago. So I know the area really, really well. And am proud to have an opportunity to potentially do something here in the Millwood area. So with that, I'll thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Tanya?
Yes, if I may, I'll respond to Commissioner Vesey's question. Based on the record, the lots do have to be a lease basis. It is required to maintain a single ownership of the land. The individual units can be as Mr. Anderson described.
Thank you for the clarification. As you know, I've only read the packet and that was a good clarification.
So, it will shortly, we'll have the appealers, the appellant, step forward. What I'd like to say first is, there is always an opportunity for whatever judgment is rendered here to be appealed later on. So, and it is important to point out that the reason why we have an appeal is the city has approved this administratively to go forward. So, at this time, we would ask the appellant to come forward, and you also have 10 minutes as yourself or as your group to present your appeal of the decision.
Thanks, Mayor. Winston Wiggins, 9925 East Dalton, and I do represent the citizens who filed the appeal that you've got before you. This application and attachments make it clear that this is a request for a 20-unit development. The staff report and decision itself describes the proposal as a 20-unit manufactured home park. The planner approved the application with conditions. Condition 3 limits the number of units to 17. This is not a condition. It's a material modification of the application itself. It's based on the bulk density standards in the Millwood Comprehensive Plan, which specify a maximum density of 2 units per 10,000 square feet. By her own calculation, the planner confirmed that a 20-unit development on this site exceeded the maximum standard she cited. On that basis, she should have denied the application. She should have, but she did not. Instead, she decided to find a way to approve it. She adjusted the application, reducing the number of units to 17, which by her calculation met the standard she relied on. We asked her to explain how she arrived at 17, and she emailed her calculations showing a maximum of 16.64 units. Then she wrote, quote, which rounds up to 17, end quote. By definition, maximum numbers cannot be rounded up. Maximum is what it is, the upper limit allowed. By rounding up to 17, she exceeded the maximum units allowed based on the standard that she cited for her condition, her so-called condition. The Millwood Code under which this application was filed allowed manufactured home parks were compatible with existing potential development of properties in the vicinity. This site is in the UR1 zone defined as low-density residential, intended to provide for primarily single-family homes on large lots. The planner emphasizes the word primarily in this sentence. If she had paid attention to the purpose of the UR1 zone, she would have read, preserving its existing semi-rural nature. This is an integral part of the Millwood zoning code. She could have emphasized the word preserve, defined as to protect, keep safe from injury or harm, maintain and keep free from decomposition. The congested, unmanaged commercial proposal does not meet the preservation requirement. It will erode and decay the essential character of nearby properties. A number of conditions imposed by the planner are ineffective or meaningless. For example, CCRs are to be established, but the city has no input into their content or adequacy. There are non-defined enforcement provisions. The developer stated that he would drive through the development every couple of weeks to check on its condition. This same person, as a part of the application, called Millwood residents ignoramus. Someone who displays such arrogant contempt for Millwood citizens, including you at this table, will not be serious about enforcement. A 6-foot privacy fence is required, but there's no specifications to style or construction. The applicant is encouraged to make certain modifications to parking arrangements. Encouragement is not a condition. It can't be enforced. Use of RVs as primary dwelling units is prohibited, but nothing says they can't be used as long-term temporary quarters, which is a recipe for deterioration into an unsightly slum. Condition 16 states that the design of the manufactured home will be reviewed for consistency with cottage-style manufactured homes, identified in the typical design examples. Cottage-style home is not defined, and the shiny pictures submitted are not referenced in the application itself. An internet search of cottage-style homes yields a wide range of options, virtually none of which appear like the pictures. This imprecise requirement is meaningless. In addition to these deficiencies, there's no mention of how the provisions would be enforced by the city. The city has at best a spotty record of code enforcement, so why should we expect anything different here? The decision document states that all comments received from agencies and the public have been reviewed and considered prior to the decision. Is this really the case? The impacts of this proposal on the long-term traffic problems on Empire are dismissed. Quote, traffic counts taken by the city on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2017. Not much development has occurred since the traffic counts were taken. These studies are out of date and have not been provided to us. This statement ignores the extensive apartments constructed in Coyote Rock and the large complex currently under construction on Empire, just east of the city. It is apparently the opinion of individuals that do not live along Empire, most of whom have never visited the site, that traffic associated with this proposal is not important. Residents with firsthand daily knowledge disagree. The potential for increased crime has been totally ignored. We intuitively know what congested, unmanaged, low-income housing, which this will be, is synonymous with increased crime. Law enforcement personnel confirm this, and that crime spills over into family neighborhoods. Rosehaven Trailer Park was advertised at its inception as having a gold star rating. According to the Spokesman Review, as it deteriorated into a crime-ridden eyesore, law enforcement had to respond to vehicle thefts and drug-related crimes. Homes were raided and people were arrested on drug charges. According to the Spokane Valley Police, when you have an absentee landlord, they don't see the day-to-day decline, and they're either unwilling or don't care to address it. Why officials won't even acknowledge this concern is baffling. This proposal will drive down nearby property values. The reason for this is clear: aesthetics. It will become a bunch of poorly maintained structures surrounded by the debris of those with no pride of ownership. How would you feel if this proposal were located next to your home? How would it impact the value of your property? You know, Mr. Anderson said here that he wanted to build something that he took pride in. But at the neighborhood meeting, he told us, if this was going in next to me, I'd be sitting out there objecting with you. He doesn't want it next to his property. If you won't listen to Millwood residents, maybe you should listen to him. The applicant was asked if there were any structures near the site over 45 years old and eligible for listing in preservation registers. He attested that there were no such structures within 500 feet. He knows this is not true. He's been told before. To our knowledge, he has no expertise in identifying historic buildings. Annie Oakes, however, a member of the Millwood Historic Commission, has provided several examples of homes that would potentially qualify for historic designation. The planner simply accepted this false statement despite her obligation to check the applicant's submission for accuracy. Maybe the city planner, an unelected non-resident, does not think it her responsibility to consider the impact of this development on residents. But as elected representatives of Millwood citizens, You do have that responsibility to advance the quality of life and unite the city of Millwood, not to somehow incorporate us into the standards of Spokane or Spokane County. We are a unique feature of this area, and we want to stay that way. This proposal erodes that objective. You are faced with a decision. You can listen to the citizens you were elected to represent and help alleviate crime and protect individual property values. Alternatively, you can approve a proposal that violates the Millwood Code and Comprehensive Plan, is full of false statements, was subject to a deficient analysis, and diminishes Millwood values. In so doing, you side with the applicant who has contempt for the citizens you represent. Please honor the Millwood Code objective of preserving the existing semi-rural nature of the area. Reverse the decision of the city planner, deny this proposal, and let Millwood be Millwood. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I have,
Thank you very much.
if I may, Mayor, I just have printed copies of what I just said for the.
You may leave it, but is it distributable?
Yeah, no, let's go ahead
Okay,
and
go
include it in
ahead.
the record. That'd be good. That'll make the transcript just as easy.
So at this time, the applicant has 5 minutes to respond.
Excuse me. Just 3 items that I'll respond to. He said that I have contempt for the Millwood community, the people who live here, that live here. How would you know if I have contempt?
No. You need to address, you need to address the
Okay.
body. We're
Sorry.
not,
So how would he know if I have contempt? I have no contempt for anybody in the community, anywhere around me. Why would I? You know, so that's ludicrous. The second part of it, he brought up the ignoramus quote. That was not from me. An employee of mine mistakenly made that comment in some written dialogue on some applications way back when. So he did make that comment. It's certainly not my attitude or my belief of anybody here in this room or anyone in the community. And I forget what the third one was, but those those are the 2 important things that I wanted to come back at.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that concludes the testimony from the presentation from the applicant, the testimony of the appellant, and any response from the applicant. So at this point, council is open to deliberation as the hearing body.
I'll just say what I think. You know, it's been brought up, should we even be a quasi judicial thing? Because this is like 2 + 2 = 4, and we don't want to infuse any emotion into it. But clearly, as we look through these packets that we've been given, there's interpretation left and right all over this place. I think it is a compelling, I think of all the things I've heard from the citizens, the compelling thing is, this does feel like we just tried to greenlight it. It does say 20 units on it. Then we did go out of our way to round up and say, oh, well, we'll go ahead and we're not gonna send this back to you. We're just gonna, and then go through the process again. I'll show you how we can get it under the way, and then we're going to turn it into 17. I do feel like, are we sure that they would have done the same thing with an appeal application from citizens? I do feel like that is really the only thing that we should be talking about, because some of these other things are not addressed in the code, but this is addressed in the code.
Mr. Worst, I have a question. So in terms of, does the staff have the capability to add conditions to an application such as this?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me make sure I understand your question. When you say conditions such as this, what are you referring to? The sizing? of
Right.
this? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. It's been approved at the administrative level, subject to 17 units.
Okay.
The approval would not be for 20, it wouldn't be for 18, it wouldn't be for 19.
Right. And And staff has the capability to, just like in the past, to put conditions on the application, correct? There's several conditions to the application. That's within,
Conditions to the approval?
to the approval.
Approval of the application, correct.
Okay. Okay. So, I can go. So, it seems to me, this is a very good staff report, like I said. I think it's comprehensive. I think the conditions were good. I think they're reasonable. I had parking issues, right? And so the parking space was 6 feet. I think that's unreasonable. If you look, you couldn't open car doors side to side. I don't think that works. However, I submit the question 88 as well. I think that's administrative. You know, I'll remind the council, it's a closed record. So we can't look at other things, right? It's what's before us. So in terms of my questions, the main question came down to was it appropriate to round up based on 16.6? My preference is it comes down to 16. However, that's not subject to us, right? And there's precedent to round up. So we, the city has done that in the past. We did that with the 55 and over. So I don't see that we can, the applicant fulfilled each part of the application. I think the staff did a good job saying, here's conditions, right? I think those conditions are completely reasonable. I don't think things like crime are appropriate. I don't think that's basis in fact. I'm not comfortable making a blanket statement. In fact, I think that it looks to me like these are tiny homes. Planning and zoning, we talked about tiny homes for 15 years, right? It seems like a really good thing to have tiny homes. I don't know if condo, is that possible in the future to create a condo association?
It's currently possible.
Oh,
So that's how
good.
the ownership would occur.
Okay,
That's in state law.
right, okay. So I think that the cottage style, and it's true, you know, it's not defined, but it appears like the applicant's trying to, and to meet with the citizens, right? The other thing is the applicant actually came before us.
Yeah.
As Handy knows, one of my frustrations at planning and zoning is if you do an application and you don't show up, right? If you don't actually engage with the decision-making body or the citizens, I don't think that shows much. In this case, I think it's the opposite, right? So I like the idea of tiny homes. I think there's a benefit to that. I'm concerned about traffic. We're addressing traffic. I think we have a traffic plan that the council will look at moving forward. So I think traffic, we don't have issues with sewer, water, so forth. So it seems to me that there aren't grounds to deny this application. And if we did deny it, my concern is that we wouldn't prevail in litigation. And so that would be a substantial outlay of cost that I won't be comfortable with. So that's my 2 cents.
Councilman Stevens?
Yes.
Go ahead. I was gonna add some.
I agree with everything you say. I think that a discussion around crime, us predicting what the crime rates are gonna be and getting out our crystal balls is entirely beyond the point of this conversation. But I am an expert in measurement, and maximum means maximum. And honestly, as I indicated, and probably inappropriately so, if this was for 16 units, I agree 100% with you. I don't think we have a leg to stand on to deny this. But I think it's inappropriate, and it shows how much interpretation is on the process of the staff of making all kinds of calls. And this is how, I'm just saying, let's remove the veil of like, oh, well, we wouldn't want citizens helping decide because there's no interpretation and you might infuse emotion into it. There's tons of interpretation. There was an interpretation here. Maximum means maximum. So I do think we have a grounds, but that is the sole ground. I agree with everything else you said.
Yeah, so I appreciate those comments, Commissioner Beasley. I would think, though, that we should go back to planning and zoning, say we should have parking space, right? Actual for Millwood, I would like, 9, 10 feet, right? Let's make sure that it fits what's realistic for today's vehicles, especially SUVs. Secondly, I think there is precedent. And so I would say that we should go back to planning and zoning and say, other jurisdictions do this. I actually researched it somewhat, that they'll round down. And so if we want to do that, I think we should have planning and zoning talk about that, bring a recommendation to us. And I actually agree with you. I think it should be a maximum round down. In this case, it's too late, right? I don't think that we, especially since we have precedent for rounding up. If we didn't have that kind of precedent, then I would be more comfortable saying a maximum of 16. In this case, I'm just not comfortable. I think that would subject us to possible litigation that we have precedent to the opposite. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think they've done very well meeting what we came up with. And that whole number thing is, if we're going by money, I wanna round up. But I don't know the answer to the 16.6 up or down. Is it enough grounds for denial? I don't know.
Don't think so. Mr. Sanders?
I can agree with you, Kelly, that we have rounded up recently. And the maximum is the maximum. In the past, recent past, we rounded up to, by policy, by decision, to round up. So I think this whole thing has given us a number of items for the planning commission to look at as we go forward to implement our switch back in. So even if this was a C1, we'd still have these kinds of issues. So I think there's a number of things, parking width, maybe a number of parking things that we need to address in the future. But fortunately, we're looking at the rules as they were written when this was submitted, and our historic approach. So I guess we just gotta focus on what we can do and not maybe what we'd like to do.
I agree and empathize with everything you're saying. And I'm honestly understand, we all have individual accountability, yet we have a collective authority. I'm gonna respect everyone's vote. But I am gonna resist this language, oh, we're not allowed to interpret. Everyone else is allowed to interpret, but we're not allowed to interpret. Again, I'm not making an argument about crime, I'm not making an argument about all these other ancillary things that have been addressed. You keep saying, but the rules are the rules. Yeah, the rules literally say maximum this. You are making an interpretation to go beyond that. That's all I'm pointing out, and I would respect that, and we will part as fellow council members and neighbors, but let's quit saying like, you are also not infusing, oh, the rules are rules, I just had to do it. You are choosing to interpret the rules differently than they are written on this black and white sheet.
Sean?
I would like to agree with Kelly that if we were interpreting the rules, we could say round down. However, the fact that the city just approved a project and was rounded up means we are unlikely to prevail
It's fair interpretation.
on legal action if we deny this.
All four of you have expressed a fair interpretation. I'm just saying my interpretation isn't, oh, she's a neighbor and she's infusing all kinds of emotions into it. I'm an expert in measurement, and when I see a piece of paper that says maximum, that's the maximum.
And I agree with you, and so I think in the future, it makes lots of sense to actually codify that.
Absolutely.
And so next meeting, I think we should go back to planning and zoning and say, let's talk about parking size, let's talk about sidewalk width, let's talk about codifying maximum and round down, right?
Sure.
And so I think that makes sense. Yeah, I was hoping one of you would have an argument against, you know. So the one thing that I think will be interesting is one thing, and, you know, I talked about planning and zoning and the junior person here. So we would talk about housing density and things like that. I think it's that next month that we'll talk about that. So hopefully, this will be 17 units that we can apply to future standards. And so, you know, I think that's something that's beneficial. This appears to be a development that could actually be beneficial to Millwood. Like I said, tiny homes. Okay, tiny homes, I think there's a place for affordable housing, right? I think that we should talk about different means to make affordable housing. So if we have density issues, let's talk about things like that in the future. I don't see grounds to deny this. I think staff did, like I said, in 17 years, this is a very good staff report. This is very thorough. It's comprehensive. With my background, I tend to look at details. I went through this multiple times. I went through all of the comments multiple times. I appreciate the comments that were submitted. And I think some were very valid. I think that parking is a valid point. However, we don't have it codified in our city code, so that's an oversight. But if someone else has a good argument for denial that's strong, I'd love to hear it.
Can we ask Amanda questions?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
The permit was approved the application was approved at 17 sites. Do we know how wide the driveways could be made with that additional space?
I didn't do the calculations, but it is my intent to work with the developer to come up with wider driveways and parking stalls, I do not think they would have any objection to that.
And I think, Sean, how our code is written, if I'm correct, it's based on RCW, correct? And so it references back to the parking spaces. We reference back to RCW, and it's somewhat unclear, but it's like 8 foot.
For ADA.
Oh, for
That's
ADA.
part of the ADA equation.
That's part of the ADA.
And we don't know if ADA is gonna be applicable yet
Right.
until it's planned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's planned. Councilperson BC, do you have a?
I mean, again, I'm not gonna extend the scope of what the package is before us. I think that a reasonable discussion has taken place here. I maintain that it is reasonable for us to hold to the maximum as outlawed, or as put into the code explicitly. And I think it's defensible. But I respect every individual's right to make their interpretation. But I do appreciate that this process has spotlighted this whole thing is full of interpretation. And to keep acting like, oh, it's just 2 + 2 and everybody would have made that same decision, then we're not being honest with ourselves.
Well, I think there's always interpretation. In terms of, are there any other concerns that you have?
There are a lot of concerns that I believe all of us have expressed, and we've sought to close the loop on a lot of those code issues. But as we've pointed out many times before, this application became so I don't see it as a positive thing, but I personally believe that if you think that 17 units, if it was 16 units, I'd be voting yes.
What about ADA? That's still an outstanding question.
It was conditioned that if it's applicable, they must comply with it. At time of building permit, the building inspector plans examiner for the city of Spokane Valley that Millwood contracts with will be the one to review the building codes in accordance with the type of units that are put in.
But at that time, the parking issue may be,
I think it'll already
the
be
ADA may
resolved.
happen after the parking, after we get a final site plan. Then the ADA, then you have to modify the site plan.
No, the site plan would be concurrent or prior to building permit approval.
Building permit for
Each
individual.
individual unit, yes. So they need to go through and have civil plan review in order to put in the roads, as noted in here. And at that time,
That
we
would,
would be
okay,
discussing.
okay. I was interpreting that to mean building permit for the building, a building. I see.
Yeah, no, there's a civil review process that has to occur prior to.
And the, the building officials will be looking at that civil plan as well as our staff.
They will when the building permit application comes in, yes. The site plan, like I said, I believe will be, am I talking off the record? Okay. I will be working with the developer to get a site plan that has the wider spots, and I believe they can be accommodated.
So does the body have any further questions for Amanda at this time? Does the body have any questions for Mr. Worst regarding interpretation of statute, Millwood, or otherwise?
Just say, so the final decision would have to come back to you in a written form. Since this is a final action, a final land use action that would be subject to litigation or appeal. So I think what we'd ask for at this point is if there would be a vote of the council, it would largely be a ceremonial vote that would have to come back, be ratified in a written decision of the council at the next council meeting. So similar to the process before, where we develop findings and conclusions and things like that. I think I'd probably want to ensure that whatever the decision is of the council, that it's reflected to the council. I'm happy to assist in drafting a first draft, but it would have to be reflective of the council. I don't want it to be reflective of something I've written. So.
Any other comments or questions? Does the council wish a voice vote, or do you wish a roll call vote?
I think voice is fine.
Yeah.
Voice? So, they are voting to accept the appeal or deny the appeal?
It'd have to be a motion.
So what is your motion?
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal for a mobile home park, 2024-01.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. So now before you, discussion. Is there any discussion? You've had a lot of time to do this. Any discussion? So at this time, all in favor of denial of the appeal, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Nay. The vote is 4-1. The appeal is denied. Is there any further business before this body?
We just need to make sure
We have to draft up the.
we do a better job with our code.
So on that point, after the vote, remember the code is your code. The code is the planning commission's code. There have been numerous code proposals brought before the city. I think some have worked their way for a couple years at times in the planning commission, right? So I think it's important that as a result of this exercise and any other exercise that you envision coming down the pathway for the city, that, you know, you are the ultimate policymakers for the city. You really need, we've got an opportunity. Could not be a more fortuitous time for a joint meeting with the planning commission to sit down and start identifying what the policies are, what policies you want to see captured in the code. There's a process that develops at the planning commission. It does take time, but, if you have policies that you want to see carried out sooner than later, that's the policy you set. You can say, we'd like to see these back by, tomorrow, right? So, let's make certain, on some of the issues tonight that were heavily debated, those were just recodified in 2022. So these are not issues that are new. These are issues that have been in the city code. Those are new, but they were recodified and they've been in the code, in the city code since I started working with the city in 2002.
So I want to be clear. The one issue that has been debated is not codified anywhere. It's a difference of interpretation of what is written. I just want to be clear. I mean, because it has not. Even the reliance was, what's precedence because the 39 unit. It says maximum is this. That's what's codified. I'm being honest. I don't want to paint a picture that a bunch of stuff has been debated here. It's really only been that one issue.
I understand what you're saying. What isn't in the code is the policy that you're wanting to capture, which is how that density is. I can tell you, just reading from the city of Spokane's code right now, where density is an issue that's debated heavily. They talk about what is the maximum density. Then they have a separate section that says calculating density. Calculation of density for a residential or subdivision or residential development is as follows. And then it says, when the calculation of density results in a fraction, the density allowed is rounded up to the next whole number. For example, a calculation in which lot area divided by minimum area equals 4.35 units, the number is rounded up to 5 units. That's what our code's missing.
Exactly. So it's the absence of something that's been codified, and we're relying on precedents, but it is not codified what we just decided. It's the absence of direction in that incidence.
And this is your opportunity to direct the planning commission as to what policies you want to see.
Fair.
So, I would remind you that this is the end of the Millwood process. It certainly does not have to be the end of the legal process for appellants. And so I would urge you that as a contentious item, this could potentially be appealed as a land use planning
We
action.
don't have a final action yet.
Right.
So that's the key, is you're still wearing the quasi judicial hat in your community until the final action's, memorialized in writing.
But once that is done, it has the potential to be appealed. So please be aware of that, as the sitting body, you still have a responsibility to preserve that appearance of fairness should this be appealed further. So, with no further business before the council, I would ask for a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned.
Yes. And then Dan or Kelly? Second.